We have sad news in the world of music. It says Scott Walker has died. He was 76 years old, and he was born January 9th, 1943. He died March 25th of 2019. He was an American-born British singer, songwriter, composer, and record producer. Even though he used the name Scott Walker, that was actually a stage name. His real name was Noel Engel. Um, he was known for his distinctive baritone voice and unorthodox career path, which he took from the 1960s up until this year, because he sang from '68 to 2019. Um, Walker's success was largely in Britain, where his first three solo albums reached top 10. He lived in the UK from '65 and became a naturalized British citizen in 1970. Um, First coming to fame in the mid 1960s as a frontman of the pop music trio the Walker Brothers, Walker began a solo career in 1967. In 1967, Scott moving toward an increasingly challenging Baroque pop style in the late '60s albums such as Scott 3 '69, which was released in 1969, and Scott 4, which was released in 1969. Also, his work did not sell well, leading him to reunite with the Walker Brothers in the mid 1970s. From the mid 1980s, Walker revived his solo career while moving in increasingly an avant-garde direction that the Guardian likened to Andy Williams reinventing himself as Stockhausen. Walker continued to release solo material until his death and was last signed to the record label 4AD Records as a record producer or a guest performer. He worked with a number of artists including Pulp, UD Lempers, Sun O, and Bat for Lashes. I don't know any of those bands. Noel Scott Engel was born in 1943 in Hamilton, Ohio. Um, his his mother was from Canada, and then his father doesn't say exactly where his father's from. His father was an oil industry worker whose work led the family to various homes in Ohio, Texas, Colorado, New York. Scott and his mother settled in California in 1959. Engel was interested in both music and performance and spent time as a child actor and singer in the late '50s. Originally championed by singer and TV host Eddie Fisher, he appeared several times on Fisher's TV series and recorded several songs, one of which was called "Misery," which saw him briefly marketed as a teen idol and in the style of other popular singers at the time. At the time of his arrival in Los Angeles, Scott had already changed both his taste and direction. He became interested in the in the jazz style of music of Stan Kenton and Billy Evans. He was also a self-confessed continental suit-wearing natural enemy of the California surfer and a fan of European cinema, in particular Ingmar Bergman, Federico Fellini, and Robert Bresson, and the Beat Poets. And between attending art school and furthering his interest in cinema and literature, Scott played bass guitar and was proficient enough to get a session work in Los Angeles as a teenager. In 1961, after playing with the Routers, he met guitarist and singer John Mouse, who was already using the stage name John Walker as a fake ID to enable him to perform in clubs while underage. At first, they formed a new band, Judy and the Gents, backing John Walker's sister, Judy Mouse, before joining with other musicians to tour the Safaris, although they did not play on the Safaris records. In early 1964, Scott and John Walker began working together as the Walker Brothers. Late in the year, linking up with drummer Gary Leeds, whose father financed the trio's first trip to the UK. This is the Walker Brothers. Eventually, as a trio, the Walker Brothers cultivated a glossy-haired and handsome familial image. Prompted by Mouse, each of the members took Walker as their stage name. As their staged surname, Scott continued to use the name Walker thereafter, with the brief exception of returning to his birth name for the original release of his fifth solo album, Scott 4. And in songwriting credits, initially John served as guitarist and main lead singer of the trio, with Gary on drums and Scott playing bass guitar and mostly singing harmony vocals. One of their most well-known songs here is "Make It Easy on Yourself," and then you also had the song called "Love Her," "Pretty Girls Everywhere." See, I'm not familiar with all these songs, but yeah. And then it says he was 76, but I don't see a cause of death. Yep.